This is episode 3 of the Gambling Still Sucks podcast. In this episode, we will be discussing my last day gambling, aptly titled Running Off the Riverboat. Hey there and welcome to the Gambling Still Sucks podcast. My name is Jamie. I'm a compulsive gambler and I'm the host of this show. The last day I gambled was July 15th of 2010, or as you will come to know in this episode, it's the day I ran off the riverboat. And so as I get into sharing my story and my history with gambling, I thought it would be appropriate to start with the last day I gambled, July 15th of 2010. Now, to set the scene, I was in Chicago for a trade show. I work in advertising and marketing, and there was a big trade show in Chicago that week. And I'd gone up to it. I'd stay with a friend. And it was the last day, the day I was heading home. And I got up early, really early, before they even woke up to leave, to head out to beat traffic. And as any of you compulsive gamblers out there are probably already thinking, or you're smiling, because you know that beat traffic is just another way to say to go to the casino. And so, yes, I got out of Chicago early that morning. It must have been probably 6 a.m. I'm sort of an early riser as it is, but I left at 6 a.m. or somewhere around there and started driving home. And so this drive to Chicago is very familiar. And on the way up, I passed all the signs for the casinos in Indiana. I live in Ohio, and you drive through Indiana, which has casinos. Illinois does not. I believe they had riverboats at the time. Now, actually, Ohio has casinos, so we could go and play cards there now. But at the time, in 2010, casinos were not yet a thing in Ohio. And so I saw this as a golden opportunity to stop on the way home. Nobody would be any wiser, and I could just stop and play a little bit of poker on my way home. I could tell them, hey, I left, 10 o'clock or whatever. I took my time. If I got home 6, 7 o'clock at night, nobody would be curious or questioning where I was all day. And as compulsive gamblers, we're always looking for these places where time and opportunity cross, and this was definitely one of them. And so I'm driving, and I didn't have a casino in mind that I would stop at, but I knew about where they were in Indiana. And so all of a sudden I saw the sign, and all of a sudden I got excited, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I remember pulling off the highway and driving and following the signs. There were billboards everywhere because casinos want to make sure that you don't get lost. And so I think every 5 seconds there was a new billboard with instructions on where to go. And this particular casino was a riverboat casino. And it was as sketchy, as dirty and weird as you can imagine. So setting the scene, I park and I go down in, and walking in, you walk down this ramp, and it's sort of a tunnel because you're going onto the boat. And at the end, there was a guy, and he was checking IDs. And I pulled out my ID, and I saw there was a scanner. And the places I had been gambling in Ohio was like a local card room that was only open at certain times. And I really didn't have much experience with these scanners, and it freaked me out. And I was like, wait a second, I don't really want to give them this because they're going to scam me. It's going to add me to a database. There's going to be records. And so all those things that we as compulsive gamblers, it's like, this is impinging on my ability to hide it. And so even just going on, I'm like, man. And at that moment, I almost turned around and left. But I was like, no, I'm a compulsive gambler. I'm going to go in and I'll take this risk. Nobody will know. They'll send stuff to my current address that's on my ID, but I'm moving anyway, and so nobody will know. So I go past security. I go in and I sit down at a poker table. And now it's probably, 7:30 in the morning. And it looked like what a riverboat casino poker table would look like at 7:30 in the morning. I think there were only 2 tables open, maybe even just one, playing the game that I used to play, Texas Hold'em. And it was full of people that had clearly been there since at least the night before, if not longer. And so I thought, okay, this is cool. Like, they're all going to be sleepy and tired. I'll take advantage of them and make a lot of money. And then I'll get off this boat by like noon so I can get home by 6, 7 o'clock and nobody will be any wiser. And so I sat down and started playing. And as I expected, the people were pretty tired and they were playing pretty loose, and it was a pretty wild game. And as was often the case, I was winning a little bit, and I was playing pretty tight, pretty conservatively. That's how I usually played early on. And then the longer I played, I'd get more reckless. Or if somebody beat me, my competitive side would come out and I'd try and get them back. But in this case, I was playing pretty conservatively and hit a couple big hands. And all of a sudden, I don't know, I had probably doubled or tripled my money at that point. And I'm thinking, okay, man, I could probably leave now. But like I say, I'm a compulsive gambler, so I wasn't going to leave yet. And so I stayed and continued to play, and I had a hand that didn't work out well and I lost. And then I got mad and I lost another hand that I shouldn't have been playing. And that spiral continued. All of a sudden now I'm down below what I started with. And so now I'm really spinning. I'm like, crap, I could have left here an hour and a half ago. I had that conversation I had constantly in my head, which is, you should have left before, but now you're going to stay and you're going to try and get it back. Well, then the stress went through the roof when I looked down and my phone was vibrating in my pocket. And when I pulled it out, it was my fiance. Now, she thought I had quit gambling several years ago. She didn't know that I was back playing poker at some card rooms in Cleveland and doing a little bit online. And so her calling, definitely wasn't going to pick up because I'm sitting at a casino on a riverboat. I didn't want to hear anything in the background. So I click at the voicemail. Well, she keeps calling and she keeps calling, and then she leaves a voicemail. Then she leaves another voicemail. And all of a sudden I'm like, what's going on? And I look at my phone in more detail and I realize I have a call that dialed out to her. I called her first. And I forget, it was like a 2 or 3 minute call. Well, obviously it was in my pocket. I have no clue at this point what she heard. Did she hear the chips? Did she know that I was at a casino? Is that why she's calling? What's going on? And so I freak out. I get up from the table. I quick run to the cashier, get the $100 or whatever I had. I think she was even counting it out. And I'm like, look, just give me whatever. At that point, I would have taken 100. She's counting out the individual chips to give me the exact amount. And I take my money. I run down that ramp up to my car. I get in my car and I realize I have to call her back. She's still calling me. And so I forget whether I picked up one of the times she called or if I called her back. And at this point, she's frantic and she doesn't know what's going on with me. And I kind of get the feeling she's worried about my well-being. And for all she knows, I've been kidnapped or whatever, and I'm trying to dial out, but I can't. And eventually I come clean. I'm at a casino. And as I'm driving away, I remember telling her, I'm so sorry. I stopped. I was playing poker. I don't know what you heard. And I came clean and spilled the beans. I didn't come clean in the fact that I got caught. But once I got caught, I came clean and started telling her what was going on. And needless to say, that was not a conversation either one of us wanted to have. And she was at work, so she just said, look, I can't do this right now. We'll talk when you get home tonight. So after I hang up with her, I began what is the longest and most sobering drive of my life, about a 5-hour drive home from Indiana to Ohio. And along the way, I start calling people. I called my mom and I told her what was going on. I called my sister because she knew about some of my problems and she lived along the way, and I stopped and I talked with her and she gave me some of the best advice you could imagine. I'll probably cover this in more depth, but at one point I was talking to her and she said, look, Jamie, you're saying all the right things, but deep down it still sounds like you can do it. And I don't know why, but that has stuck with me. I remember it word for word, and she was right. I was saying all the right things because I got caught, but deep down I still thought I could do it. And so her calling me out was a huge turning point for me, and it really kind of set me back and said, look, man, this you need to change. You can't just think you're going to keep doing this. And so that was a huge moment. Along the way, I also called one of my poker buddies that I used to only go play poker with. We didn't really hang out outside of that. It was just he and I both like to play cards. We like to do it in secrecy, basically. And we were kind of in this relationship where we'd call up and it was somebody to drive with, somebody to ride with, somebody that didn't ask you too many questions if you won or you lost. And so I called him and said, look, I'm done. Don't call me. Don't text me. I'm not going to go. And I remember when I hung up the phone with him, that was one of those things I talked about in the last episode about taking actions. And that action was huge. And he kind of chuckled, oh yeah, sure. You'll be back. You'll be back. And that was the last time I spoke with him ever. And so it's interesting with the people you gambled with. Once you're done and you're out of it, you were only talking to them or friends with them because of gambling. But taking those actions and starting to sever some of those ties is very uncomfortable, but it's very effective. And so I drove all the way home. I met up with my then fiance, now wife. It must have been about 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And she looked at me and she said, look, you have a problem and you need to get help. And you're going to go to GA. And she started laying out the things that were going to happen in order for us to stay together. And needless to say, I felt about as crappy as possible because this was 60 days before we were set to get married. And so what a great guy that drops this on his fiance just months before their wedding. Now, this was obviously a tremendously low moment in my life, but I have to say the fact that she reached out and said, look, I know you have a problem. I know you can get help. There was a sense of belief in me that was coming from someone else. And it was a belief that I didn't even have in myself at the time. And so hearing her say those words changed my life. It allowed me to start to see that, okay, maybe I can change this. If she knows, she's seen people on intervention and I'm going to do all these steps. And it really started the ball rolling into me taking the actions, going to GA, end up going to personal therapy as well, starting to come clean about all these things that really started to set my life of recovery in motion. And so there it is. That is the day that I ran off the riverboat. And it's the last day I gambled, July 15th of 2010. And it's the day that will hopefully be my clean date for the rest of my life. Now, in the next episode, we are going to be discussing how I went from being somebody that was completely anti-gambling, that hated gambling, to an addicted poker player. And so we'll sort of do the first half of my story of how I became a compulsive gambler. Finally, before I let you go, just want to remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe if you'd like to continue to receive updates for when new episodes come out. And then also, if you have a chance, I would be very, very, very thankful if you have a chance to leave that review, because that's what's going to help spread the message to help get this kind of ranking higher in the rankings on iTunes, on Stitcher, are the reviews. And so if you have a chance, 30 seconds to a minute, just leave a quick review. That would be awesome. I would be very, very thankful and appreciative. As a disclaimer, this podcast does not provide legal or medical advice. Look, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not a therapist. I'm just a guy that had a gambling problem. So while we'll discuss a lot of topics and I'll provide a lot of insight into what's worked for me, please seek out the help of a professional. Go visit a lawyer, a doctor, or a therapist to help you deal with your gambling problem. The information that we discuss is for informational purposes and should not be taken as professional legal or medical advice. And reliance on the information appearing on this podcast is solely at your own risk. The music for this podcast is Something Elated by Broke for Free and is licensed under the Creative Commons.